I'm 10 years old, and I'm terrified. My older sister and I share a bedroom. Her bed is up against the wall, and mine is right in front of the closet door, and I'm convinced that's the door the monster's gonna come through. I have my covers bunched in both of my clenched fists, wrapped up tight around my face, my heart's pounding, I'm sweating, and I yell, "Mom!" 2 hours earlier, we begged her to let us watch A Nightmare on Elm Street. Remember this? Freddy Krueger, knives for fingers, comes at you through your dreams. The Don't Fall Asleep movie. Terrible idea. I didn't fall asleep that night until well after our recliner was moved to in front of that closet door. That was my first memory of encountering the monster known as the boogeyman. Did you ever have a boogeyman moment? Seems pretty common for most of us. And I gotta admit, retelling that story now sounds ridiculous. But back then, that monster was real, very real. This boogeyman experience is external. It's connected to something outside of ourselves. In my case, Freddy Krueger. But we all have internal monsters too that are harder for us to talk about. At the core of these stories is a wound. That wound was inflicted on a part of our identity, and at that moment, a monster was born. And since that time, the monster has stood guard between us and that part of our identity. Back to the 10-year-old me. I'm terrified. I'm in that same bedroom, but this time I'm hiding behind my sister's bed. I'm hugging my knees and I'm sobbing. I'm wiping up tears and snot with my jeans. I feel completely out of control of my emotions. I don't want to be seen or heard. But my mom finds me back there and she asks what's wrong. I say 3 words. I miss Dad. My parents divorced when I was younger. My mom continued raising us south of Chicago where I was born. And my dad moved away to Missoula, Montana. In those words, I was expressing more than just me missing my dad. I was beginning to realize our family wasn't going to be put back together again. When you're that young, you don't have any control over how you respond to trauma. I was hurting. In that phrase, I miss Dad, I was actually giving life to a monster that would continually criticize me by saying things like, "You're not valuable, you'll never matter, you don't have what it takes to be significant." So how did I start to regain my power over this monster? Well, there are 2 common approaches most of us would use. First is to ignore our monsters. Simple enough, right? Just turn our back to them, pretend they don't exist. So that's a good, safe approach. But it doesn't fix anything, does it? And actually, when we ignore our monsters, they still have power over us. If the monster's voice is over here, I'm already acknowledging it exists. And if its voice turns to my left, I turn to the right in order to continue ignoring it, reacting but never addressing it. So what's the second approach? We can fight our monsters. We've all heard face our fears at some point in our lives, right? And what we actually mean is conquer your fears. We need to beat this thing. We can't back down until this thing is destroyed. Problem is, our monsters hold the key to who we are. If we ignore or destroy our monsters, we lose a very important part of ourselves. So not only do we have to acknowledge they exist, we have to let them live. Which leads me to a better approach to regaining our power over these monsters. We sit with them. And as strange as this sounds, we say, "Dear monster, I love you." And we choose to show them unconditional love and forgiveness. Because at their creation, they were born out of the areas in our lives where we needed to feel unconditional love, but instead, we felt judgment. It took me 25 years after that moment behind my sister's bed to realize what was really going on. I chose to sit with this monster, and it was hard. It was uncomfortable. There were tears. There was anger. But I stayed there with this thing. And as the darkness of this monster's hot breath tingled up my spine, memories started to come back like a flood. I'm holding a can of shaving cream in one hand, a razor in the other, staring at my teenage self in the mirror with tears in my eyes because I didn't know how to shave. Or being on the verge of joining a gang because I wanted to feel accepted. And having too many close calls to where I was one decision away from ruining my life, like some of my friends back then. Not having the courage to ask my future father-in-law for his daughter's hand in marriage. The fear of walking out of the hospital with my firstborn son. And it hurt. And just like a monster, it was ugly. But something started to change during that sitting. I allowed myself to feel compassion and empathy, first toward me and then toward this monster. And an urge began to rise up within me to separate myself from this thing. And I became an observer. The pain was still real, but it was no longer a threat. At that present moment, I was okay. And then my memories began to shift. I remembered standing up for a friend of mine in kindergarten class who wet his pants. Or how my high school English teacher submitted a poem of mine to a local poetry slam and was there to watch me perform it in front of a room full of strangers. Pursuing a spiritual connection that gave me a greater perspective of how my quirky differences are actually strengths. Shaking my soon-to-be father-in-law's hand at the altar as he gave his only daughter away to me. Walking out of the hospital, this time with my first and second-born. Being vulnerable enough to have my first public art show, only to have one lady say, "You must have a lot of nightmares." Seriously. While another couple said to me with tears in their eyes, "Thank you so much for choosing to show your work." Trying my hardest to show my wife and kids unconditional love. Trying my hardest to accept unconditional love from them. Leading to an opportunity to share with you. Through sitting with this monster, parts of my identity were revealed to me. Friend, creative thinker, artist, leader, husband, dad. With the monster's guard down, I could see I didn't have to strive to be more. My strength came from what was already within me. And I was confident. My answer to its criticisms, its constant whispers of, "You're not valuable, you'll never matter, you don't have what it takes to be significant," was yes, yes I do. And that's when I realized this monster's name was shame. Now when I hear the familiar voice of this particular monster, I don't ignore it. I don't try to fight it. I sit and say, "Shame, I love you." And then I listen because it continues to tell me more about myself and I'm becoming better for it. Take the time to sit with your monsters. Learn their names so you can retake their power. Listen to what they're saying so you can regain the missing parts of your identity. You will be better for it, and we will be better for it. Thank you.